Now, a lot of the chat and a lot of the content we've had here on the channel for the last week has been kind of centred and focused around the winter gameplay update that we got from Sorare. And as much as like for the unboxing stream and the kind of reaction or the kind of big takeaways video that went out here on the channel, that's really about the bird's eye view, the kind of overview of everything of the lay of the land. But like I said, in all of those kind of pieces of content, really when you drill into it, I'm actually pretty excited about a lot of stuff, especially the stuff that's happening in and around the rare level. And in the video today, I'm going to be looking at my strategy coming into this new, you know, like I called it a silo MLS, like it's kind of siloed off in its own sort of little place, but there might be another word or two that we use to describe it as we actually flesh it out, because it sits all by itself. I think it's got a good opportunity to have like a very bespoke kind of build, kind of strategy built around it. And thankfully, coming into this, I've got a great foundation of classic cards to take into the new beginnings of MLS on Sorare. At any point in the video today, as we go through what my plans, thoughts and feelings and projections on how it's going to pan out, essentially. If you do, laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And get into the comment section, let me know your thoughts and feelings about what we talk about in the video, of course. But what is your first takes? What is your plan of attack? What's your strategy at new MLS, and how are you going to go and attack it yourself? I'm always excited to catch the comments on these ones, especially when there is like new beginnings, you know. And this is a great video for receipts, you know. If you want to get your receipts out on the internet, drop them into the comment section, and then when, you know, time comes to pass, maybe the pasture comes home, you know where you go to get your screenshot to say I called it. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Because there's a few things that we'll have to tackle with this strategy, with this new division, this new competition, that are uniquely distinct to the situation and everything that's going around it. And what I mean by that is when we look at the gameplay update, the number one thing that everyone takes away from it, of course, is the addition of the threshold. Now, I must kind of overall, first of all, kind of apologise. The first time I read this, because there was a lot of chat in the announcement between the video with Dan, and if you go through this announcement, reading line by line, etc., that it's about extra, this is gained utility somehow for MLS, when in Challenger they had free in season and free classic, and then coming over here, is it still free in season and free classic? And then I read this and there's an option for playing 4 in seasons or 5. So I thought, oh brilliant, there's like 9 lineups you can do here. That's going to be interesting, that's going to be exciting. But like actually forensically reading exactly how it pans out here, I think it is just going to be the 1 in season mode, and you've got that flex option, whether, you know, if you do go and get a full 5 season lineup, then you're automatically entered into whatever the beat your game element is going to be in. And while you're in that kind of halfway house perhaps, or you know, you're not quite there, we're having a strong lineup to have 5 in seasons, if you are still going to use the 1 classic, it's still in the same competition, it's still on the same leaderboard, and you know, you just don't get access to the beat the game mode, which is fine. But one other detail I did think that is maybe been understated in a lot of the breakdown and analysis around this is exclusively for limited and rare competitions. This won't be available in unique or super rare. So anyone that was kind of aiming to go that way at the top of the game, it's just not there, it looks like. So a wee bit of early flavour. Now, this whole strategy, like every other strategy on Sorare, is really around getting in-season cards to go and compete for cash. And the early access launches are, you know, they've been confirmed. They are going to happen the exact same way that we've seen in Contender, in the Premier League, in the Bundesliga, for everything that we had this year. And it's great to see that these guys are getting that treatment. Now, we actually have a lot of actually really good data at the edge of our fingertips. And I've lined up 5 different examples of some things to look for, because, of course, we want to get involved in in-season competitions for every match day possible. You know, MLS, the actual however many matches they're going to play this year, it escapes me at the moment, but it's a 30 league team at the moment. They're going to play the thick end of 38 games before they go into playoff mode and everything like that, so it's a very long season. And of course, everyone wants to get in for the start and to, you know, like get every game of utility you possibly can, and there's a lot of value in that, not just for the immediate impact of getting 10th in the first week or something and just, you know, getting an early start, but also the, you know, the early acquisition of the cards. You know, you're getting ahead of the game on the levels it carries and XP, and also there'll be a bit of a change to how you can, you know, have some strategy around how you use XP and how you maximize card levels and stuff like that, which again we'll kind of get in the fullness of time with the new XP system that will be coming out also. Season 2 of MFL is underway, and we are almost at the mid-season transfer window. So many of you guys in the community have been plugging in and enjoying the game, which is basically a football manager network situation where every team you come up against is another manager that's running the team, picking the tactics, trading with the players, you know, assembling on their squad to go on the road to glory. And it's a very competitive game. It's a lot of fun. If you've ever played Football Manager, it gives you big member berries. If you're interested in playing MFL and picking it up ahead of Season 3, or maybe getting involved in some of the action they do for any latecomers that open up as Season 2 knocks on, then there's a link in the description in this video that will get you all the beginner free bonus stuff that you would need and want to open up your account and get started today. Make sure to check out the content I've got on the channel, which shows you how to open up the account and get started, as well as some key beginner mistakes that I made that you should definitely avoid. By clicking on that link, you support me and all the content here at the channel. So if you are going to play this game, please click on the link that's in my videos, please. It does make a big difference to me. And if you do get stuck, if you've got any questions, jump into the comment section and I'll come and sort you out, of course. And I look forward to seeing when you've made your club, you name it what you want, you pick your badge, and then you can go out and you can challenge any team that you want to friendlies to kind of test your strength of your squad as you're developing. And so many of you guys take on FC Barcelona in your friendly matches. Always love to see the random managers that pop up in the game, and I've went toe to toe with my squad, so I look forward to seeing these out there, guys. But if we look at, like, for example, a Cole Palmer Limited, now I'd imagine Cole Palmer in the MLS context to be kind of similar to Messi in a lot of ways. This is his limited graph. Overall, like if you zoom out over the last 6 months, it does trend down because we're roughly halfway through the season. But what you'll see on this graph from Sorare data is all the blue triangles are Sorare sales, the primary market, auctions and instant buy. Instant buy is the hollow triangle, and blue is the coloured one is an auction. And then all the circles are offers, are secondary markets, whether it be direct offer or trade, that kind of thing. So you get a nice kind of balance on seeing, the primary market versus the secondary. Now, the reason that's a little bit important is the primary market, of course, can take market credits, which have been quite widely available so far this year, although it sounds like in the latest announcement that may be somewhat nerfed ever so slightly. But for all intents and purposes, you can see at the beginning of the season when the cards launch, there is a lot of cards that become available from Sorare in the first, what we're talking here, really 2 weeks. There's a huge amount of supply that comes out, and the prices are all, there's some in here that are still to this day very good price points. This is the number 18 of 1,000. It went for £108, and if you had that, well, that's a day one auction essentially, isn't it? A number 18. So today, on the primary market, you're still looking at spending basically the same amount, and on the secondary market, and there has been neon editions as well that do come into this. Maybe you can get a couple of quid off or something, but again, market credits are maybe at your disposal. So it's not to say you're going to always overpay on day one. I think you just really need to get a gauge of the temperature of the room quite quickly, and then try and go from there for these kind of key top of the food chain type cards. But again, if this isn't something that's within your budget for match day one, there will be opportunities to get them cheaper, of course, from the primary market here at £74 for the 139, which in the grand scheme of limited isn't too far removed from number 18, let's say. Because for a lot of us, it'll be about maximising the budget that you have rather than spending the budget you have, And again, looking at maybe, holding your water, keeping your powder dry, taking the temperature of the room with some of those cards if you have to, or whatever. One of the things you have to be looking for in these early access, these new launches, for anyone, no matter what our strategy is in this new MLS competition, is trying to get some of those guys that are slightly under the radar or just not overly projected to be an excellent player. And when I'm thinking about the European season, especially price-wise on Sorare, and we'll see this on the graph, I think one of the best examples we've had this year is Achraf Hakimi, who, again, we know is an amazing player. I've been saying on this channel he's the best right back in world football for the last 3 or 4 years. Easily. Been a huge Hakimi fan. And beginning of the season, again, we get that huge drop of supply, and you're looking at being really under the 50 quid mark for the majority of them. But then as his scores, as his utility becomes more and more known to the market, and he's impacting the leaderboard more and more often. Now, he's a defender in MLS. This might not happen for a defender. This could be a midfielder or a striker, of course, maybe even a goalkeeper. But when you've got a budget for day one, there'll be some guys like this that will be better guys to get early doors, guys that are, maybe not the top of the food chain, but they could be top of the food chain. You're just kind of hopeful that the situation goes well. But even at that, you think about in the first, they came out here kind of end of July, beginning of August, and even by the time you get to end of August, I suppose they've kind of went up, haven't they? You're around the 60, 70 quid mark, and today he's still kind of trading over that. So in-season cards, as you can see, do go through ebbs and flows here. His price has picked up a few times because his scores have been exceptional, and Hakimi's a nice kind of example of if you can get that guy not quite, that's the headline maker, that's the day one, everyone's I've got to get my Palmer, if the big wallet players or whatever. There'll be guys like this that fall through the cracks. Quite similarly as well, I thought Michael Olise would be quite a good example, because again, he is rather, coming into this season, had high expectations without being, I don't think anyone was championing him as being like he's going to be the top midfielder in Champion Europe or even necessarily in the Bundesliga, but I think everyone fancied like this guy's going to be 100 capable, he's going to play all the time, he's going to take sets, he's going to be very dangerous, and he has been. And we can see on day one auctions that his price did just middle finger up. And it's kind of been rather consistent for the most part. You know, the amount of cards sold, there's maybe less instant buys that have happened on someone like an Olise, because I don't know, it's a midfielder card perhaps, or maybe there's a few different reasons that go into it. But some guys can be quite steadily priced, but even within this kind of steadier price, you know, you've got some people paying, well, what's that, the number 24 for 96, and then the number 48 at 72, you know, so percentage-wise, significant differences in the pricing here. And, you know, again, a player that then goes on to have a little spike in price. Neon cards maybe push a little bit of a spike back here, but overall it's kind of trended quite consistent, still around the £70 mark or so. I thought Griezmann was quite a good example as well when it comes to limiteds of the kind of ebbs and the flows of good performances, good utility potential, but still overall like trending down across the season because of just time rather than performances or market dynamics or anything like that, whereas the last couple of cards didn't really display this very well. But as you can see, like, Griezmann goes on runs, doesn't he? Just goes on a little run, then kind of dies off, run. And a lot of this is driven, as you can see, early doors by primary market activity. So there is points, you know, where like the price does get raised up to 67, and then people are instant buying and auctioning back down to 38, 37. Not too far apart from that. So again, patience and kind of taking your time and maximising your wallet can be the best thing. You might not need Griezmann for the first 3 months of the season. You can wait till later on and get him for 22 quid on instant buy, you know, with maybe some market credits. And again, just another example of what you expect to happen early season kind of happening is maybe somebody like Guardiola, where at the beginning of the season he's quite comfortably around that 60 to 80 pound mark. He does go and have a little bit of a peak period closer to the £100 point. Now his form has kind of tailed off, right, but generally this price graph is what I think a lot of people expect to see across the full season of in season. And I think like, because you need to, you know, your wallet is your wallet, you can't change what that is, because you're looking to maximize what it is, you know, like you need to pick your moment and imagine this graph for any of the targets you're going to have for in season and think, right, am I going to buy Guardiola, Palmer, whoever you want to say in this opening period here and kind of roll with it, live and die by it? Or am I going to wait for maybe it to calm down a little bit? Am I going to wait for one of those Antoine Griezmann kind of like slide backs, kind of market correction withdrawals? Is this a guy a bit more like Olise, where you need to be actually really snipery, you know, on auctions and just try and like hopefully you get in amongst one of the cheaper ones rather than one of the more expensive ones? And who are the guys like Hakimi that we can get that are like not cheap certainly when it comes to in-season limiteds, but like are overlooked at the moment because it's so busy on the forwards, the goalkeepers, whatever might happen for MLS specifically, like the Cole Palmers again, kind of example. So for me, like, I'm not in any real kind of rush, and I think my experiences in Contender in season kind of are a pretty good example of this, because in the opening salvo, like you can see with Shaqiri, I bought him on the news, so like day one auctions, this is all I got was Kun and Maeda essentially, and a little bit of backups. And then as the auctions came out, I'm pretty sure Valley was in early doors, yeah, Valley and Bernardo, yeah, so they were probably all the kind of day one ones I got. And I had to wait for another like month for Schmeichel to come into my price range, maybe similar to like that Palmer situation. And then guys like Trusty and McKeown, I don't know if I'd quite call them Hakimis, maybe Trusty is, where you're just waiting for them to be like off the radar, try and get them in, and then it's the utility rather than the price point is their main thing. It's not that he's a £14 card, it's a guy that can deliver 80s that is way below average market value for someone in that position, in that utility range. And then it's slowly collecting over the next month guys when they are like dropping out of a bit of form, when the market goes a bit quieter on them. And I think like as well, it's hard to keep track of this, but for me, a lot of instant buys, especially as the seasons went on, probably from this Greg Taylor onwards, instant buys for me have always had market credits attached to them, because it's pretty much the only time I think I screw it, instant buy, because I'm getting the discount on it, so it's not actually what's displayed on the thing here. So Alistair Johnson, of course, I had like half price on that with a Christmas market credit that I won. And again, he's probably one of the must-have cards in the team, and I only got him 23 days ago. The rest of the cards are good XP position. The collection bonus has been picked up along the way. So even though I'm getting him a little bit later in the day, as it were, like, it's not really the end of the world in the grand scheme of things. So I'm quite happy with the experiences I've already had in season SPFL, Contender, however you want to think about it. But now when I come into MLS this year, I do have Choupo-Moting, who's not displayed on this at the moment because the transfer must not be completely like ratified or whatever. But I've got like a strong little core here. It's not fantastic, right? But if Freeze doesn't leave, I've got Freeze and Johnson for 2 good goalkeepers. Barraza doesn't show up for this again, who's went to DC, and I do think the Korean lad is going to be the number 1 keeper there, but Barraza is going to play like 10 to 15 games over the season. Mark my words, it's just going to be a headache spot. But I've got 2 Barrazas, and I don't really care that it's a headache because I'll just see when he's projected and stick him in. Or I might even just stick him in teams in the hope that he randomly comes in. You know, I've done that before. But Van de Voort, I can do that again with the bits and pieces that are left behind. I've got like 2 defences here, like 2 teams worth. Maybe there's a third team at a real push, but between your man and then all the New York guys, I'll have 2 defences, 2 single team defences. And in midfield, I've got quite a decent amount of options between Santirod, Gold, Maxey, who's signed back on. Parks can be handy. I'm expecting big things from Armstrong, and Forsberg, of course, as we know, is good in this league if he's playing all the time and not up to shenanigans. Double Abada is kind of my saving grace up front. I don't really have much else going on outside of New York, so if one of these guys, I'm hoping Alonso Martinez keeps his kind of spot as the striker here, but again, my striker power for Classic is rather weak. These guys aren't really 80 guys, these are 60 to 70 guys at best, so I'm really relying on other positions kind of keeping up. But I think this little Classic team that I've got here can certainly replicate to a similar level. Maybe, again, we need to see the prize pool, so this is all real speculation at this stage, but my Classic SPFL stuff has managed to win a decent amount. Now, they're not actually here, so I've traded some cards away and all the rest of it, but if you look at the likes of Cammy Devlin, Martin Boyle, who I've managed to win, even this Oostendijk, who I've not managed to use yet, Ryan Astley, Oxborough, who I crafted, like, I'm quite confident my New York and the kind of bits and pieces that go around that Classic collection will, over the first like 3 months of the season, be able to help me out with maybe like a starting keeper and then a few other guys around the league that are like handy tier 2, tier 1 types, whether it be through crafting or actually pulling the card. And I'm quite happy to take my time getting into it, because along the way, again, very similar to what I've felt and found in this division here, I think MLS will replicate this, where there will be guys like Will Ferry that you can pick up for £9. We're talking about Hakimi's at limited level, and all these graphs were at limited level. And I found something interesting when I looked at rares, right, for any of us that are interested in that, is because the concentration of supply is so heavy at the beginning of the season, then the rest of the season, like, the value kind of holds for some of the better cards that are actually delivering. It doesn't really tail off the same way as it does in limited, and that really goes, I think, for all of these players. I've not completely cross-examined it before we look at it just now. Hakimi's in that elevator situation, of course, where his ability becomes discovered. Again, he didn't start off too cheap, did he? At 200 odd quid, not the same bargain as we've seen at limited. But yeah, the rare kind of control of supply, like dropping a lot early on, the price doesn't really change too much. So if you are after rares, especially, like, you do need to be quite cute in spending like £400 with market credits rather than 560 with or without early doors, and that's the difference of like a month essentially. So again, depending on what your budget, what your price point is, even at rare, it's a little bit like, the graph isn't as volatile or as like populated as impressive. But yeah, look at this for Griezmann, auction on 175 on, like, what's that, 17th of August, so like 2 weeks into it, and that's like on low because there's been a lot of the whales get their stuff early doors on someone like Griezmann, the kind of guy that's like, oh yeah, he'll be in the top 5 probably, so let's make sure I get him. And then once that demand dries up, then over especially a couple of bad performances, an auction or two can go the right way. But Griezmann, yeah, it's probably a fair example of just what happens, again, similar to what his limiteds have done, just over the season, losing games every week, because when you buy him, if he's already played 5 matches, you're not getting a full season, you're getting a full season -5. So again, like, if you don't need the guy for the first couple of months, if maybe he does have bad form and you're waiting to get that sense that it's about to turn, and you can do that kind of move, I love doing that kind of stuff here on the channel, some of you know, then yeah, maybe on the secondary market as well, you can find a card winner, someone that's wanted as a reward and doesn't want it. And yeah, other opportunities for some of these players that feel unattainable early doors can open up kind of relatively quickly when you zoom out on it. Let's look at Guardiola to see how he does at rare, just for the final kind of cross-examination here. Yeah, he's kind of similar to Hakimi in the sense where I thought I'd have seen that at limited for Josko, but Josko's limited graph didn't really show this. But I feel that Josko really showed up this year for a period and went above pre-season expectations. So you can kind of see that here. And with that happening, even today, 225 public offer. Maybe not quite day one prices, but like in the first 2 weeks, that was somewhat available. So again, if you did buy an in-season, like Josco, for example, with the utility you've used, any yield you've gained in the process right now, you'd be sitting quite pretty roughly halfway through the season. And because there's 30 teams in MLS, and it is going to be, like, because so many positions are undefined in the sense of, like, there's no Buscaglis, there's no, like, there is Messi up front, right? So you've got, in striker and midfielder, there is a clutch of guys, of course, that are very good scoring. And, you know, it's about the combinations then. Who are the two midfielders that bring in 100? Who's the striker that scores the highest? These are the things that success will kind of live and die on in this division, and those things are very volatile. We have had a lot of new managers come into MLS. There's a lot of transfers still ongoing as well. And I think, like, with MLS, it's a very good league to take your time with and see who emerges. Because, again, if you do have a limited budget, you've got an infinite wallet. Once you've spent your money, you've spent it, you know. And that's kind of the tail of the tape for me with this New York City collection in general. As you can see, not as many of them are still in MLS as maybe I would like. But once you've got them, you know, and it's about riding with them. So I think I'm going to have a bit more of an approach into this. So it'll be somewhere in between what I've did with Contender and with Champion this year, because I do want to get involved in that threshold base thing. Like, if I can get 5 in-seasons together, beat the game mode, I don't need Palmers and Elises. I could get somebody like a Griezmann, you know. There's different levels of player that are then required, and then actually beating out the leaderboard isn't as important. But obviously none of these cards on screen now are in season, so I need to be able to craft regularly, and I need to be able to be in the mix to try and pull a decent enough card once in a while, as well as keeping my eyes on card values and the auctions and all the rest of it. Use market credits tactically when appropriate as well. But I think, like, I'm quite thankful I've got this base here, because if I was interested and excited in going after MLS this summer, if I had sold all these guys previously, threw the baby out with the bathwater after different changes, which I've always been rather receptive to, and I'm pretty receptive to this thing overall. I just think the division changes are too aggressive, is maybe the way to put it. But I did say in the intro there might be another way to describe this MLS competition, and that word is incestual, because these cards now only have the ability to win MLS cards, you know. So the whole purpose of these guys is now, for as things stand the rest of the time, to win in-season MLS cards. So there's no ability to win European contenders or anything like that with them. So it's all about getting the most out of them I possibly can, and that is, like I've mentioned a few times, winning, crafting, getting the best in-season cards out of this lot that I possibly can. Now, there's maybe a little bit of business I could do in the transfer market. I think classic prices are still not too bad, but again, I'm in no real rush to do so, because let's see if Barraza starts the season. For DC, it probably won't happen, but I certainly need a goalkeeper, I think. And defenders, because there is so many of them at Classic, I don't think the price points will really change too much. And I don't need to buy a midfielder, I don't think, for a lineup or so. Maybe I could use a forward. But the way Classic prices go in these situations is they're quite, I always use the word constipated, because they're waiting for the arse to fall out. You know, they're waiting for the in-season launch to happen, because that's when the demand, that's when the attention is going to come onto the MLS market. And then some people will start to make concessions that they hadn't previously thought they would do, in the sense of, like, if you miss out on all of the in-season golds, because let's call a spade, you can list all of the whales you want to, right? They're going to be going after 3 Palmers, 3 Gills, 3 whatever you want to think of, because every one of them can benefit from the same collection bonus, and getting them all that early is going to be super advantageous for the OP top 5, top 3 kind of cards in each position, as it were. And I do think these early auctions, actually thinking about it, for some of the power players will be exorbitant, because, like, everyone that's going to play this to the nth degree is going to want, as I say, 3 copies of the same guy, and then build the collection around them, and then have, you know what I'm saying, rather than getting that in season, maybe you're forced into getting a classic, and then you're just like, okay, well, I'll just need to bide my time a little bit longer on that Palmer level player. I really need to wait for that first 2-week cooldown to go. Maybe it's a month, maybe it kind of happens and then you miss it, and then you're like, you know, that thing can happen. And you need to be quite disciplined on the market and have a really proactive approach sometimes for the really high in-demand cards. And I think with MLS being that way, but it is quite, like I say, incestual at the moment in terms of the division and what the cards do, the ones that are clearly a cut above everyone else, the whale demand on them is going to be incredible on early access. So yeah, maybe one to already be making plan Bs against, as I'm kind of thinking this out in full whiffies as we're talking about it. But I think that's the long and short of it for thoughts, feelings, expectations are for going out and playing this. In general, MLS does have a lot of old season cards. As you know, MLS is one of the oldest divisions on Sorare, so there is a lot of classic galleries, stacks, players, managers, whatever you want to think of, that have just got oodles of MLS cards lying around. And I think with the change to 3 divisions, like, MLS is going to be quite cutthroat, and you will need some of the minerals of what I've got here, 15% cards, of course. So I'm quite happy I've got that kind of foundation. It maybe just needs a little bit pushed over the top. But again, I'm quite happy to do it slowly but surely. Wait for classic prices to drop further. So I want to see the competitive strength across Division 1, 2 and 3 in Rare for MLS specifically. I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. Looking forward to catching your thoughts and feelings down in the comment section. On screen and now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Stay out of trouble, and I will catch you on the next one.